I'm Lopa Kothari, and coming up on Music Planet this afternoon, mindful of current government travel advice, we're keeping to our own shores and taking a bit of a staycation in Scotland. Well, kind of. Joining me down the line from Glasgow is Iona Fyfe, who at the tender age of 23 is fast becoming one of Scotland's finest balladeers. We're going to be talking about her music and things that get her riled up. But right now, here's a song from a studio session she recorded for Music Planet at the BBC's Pacific Key Studios with her band. This is a traditional song called Glenlogie.
She's chosen Glenlogie among all that were there. She called on his footboy that walked by her side. Speeding far is that young man, and far does he bide. He's titled Glenlogie, then he is a tame. He's o' the noble Gordons, Lord John is his name. Glenlogie, Glenlogie, prove constant and kind. My love is laid on ye, and your eye on my mind. He's turned about lightly as the Gordons day off, saying thank you, Jean Meldrum, but I'm promised a war. She's called on her handmaids to make her a bed, with ribbons and napkins to tie up her head. Oh, lay me down gently with my face to the wall. Take the rings with my fingers, my jewels and all. Through ups back her feather, and away man was he. Ach, a wedded head and Vendrum, he's bigger than he. Oh, Nana, dear father, oh, that when I die. If I cannot get Glenlogie, then for him I will die. Her father's in chaplain, a man of great skill. He's wrote a broad letter and indicted it well. Oh, pox on ye, Logie, oh, must it be so? She's lain her love on ye, must she die in her woe? Then Glenlogie got the letter, well, a late blackguard he, but fan he read the letter while a tear bled in his ear. Jeannie's got married in her tachard in Todd. Bonnie Jeannie o' Bethelny was 16-year old. Bethelny, Bethelny, ye shine where ye stand, and the header bells are in ye shine on Fyfe's land.
Glenloggie, a song about a teenager who falls in love with Glenloggie, who she believes is the man for her. From my guest in session today, Iona Fyfe, Michael Biggins there on piano with Graham Rorie on mandolin and Ali MacKenzie playing guitar. That was recorded for Music Planet in BBC Glasgow, and I'll be talking to Iona a bit later on in the programme. And so back to my guest in session on Music Planet this afternoon, Iona Fyfe. She recorded 4 songs for the programme in the BBC studios in Glasgow with her band, Michael Biggins on piano, Graham Rorie on mandolin and Ali MacKenzie on guitar. I'll be talking to Iona in a moment, but first here she is with another traditional song in the Doric dialect of Scots, and it's about a farm near Iona's home in Huntly, Aberdeenshire, and about the lads that worked there, and it's called Guys of Tuch.
I get up to Efford for to get a fee. I fell in with Jimmy Brown, we him I did agree. Come a high, come a do, a high come day, high come a diddle, come a dandy oh. I fell in with Jimmy Brown in the year of 91, to gang hame and car his second paid and be his older man. Come a high, come a do, a high come day, high come a diddle, come a dandy oh. The night get him to guys that took 'twas on an evening clear, and in about the order house the gaffer did appear. Come a high, come a do, a high come day, high come a diddle, come a dandy oh. I'm the master o' the place and that's a mistress there. You'll get plenty cheese and plenty bread and plenty mere to spare. Come a high, come a do, a high come day, high come a diddle, come a dandy oh. So I sat at the cheese and bread till they did drink me stare, and then I thought that it was time to gang and see my beer. Come a high, come a do, a high come day, high come a diddle, come a dandy oh. The night get to the stable, my pity for to view. Oh, thanks, they were a dandy paid, a chestnut and a blue. Come a high, come a do, a high come day, high come a diddle, come a dandy oh. On the following morning, I get to the blue, but long, longer lies in time, my pity got me rue. Come a high, come a do, a high come day, high come a diddle, come a dandy oh. For the blue she was no working wheel, she wouldna throw the fur. The gaffer says a better yin at the smitty take and fur. Come a high, come a do, a high come day, high come a diddle, come a dandy oh. The night get him a new blue, she believes me Uncle Wheel, but I thought she would be better again, she had a cotton wheel. Come a high, come a do, a high come day, high come a diddle, come a dandy oh. So I rocked a month or twa wee Uncle Little Clatter, till I played up some nasty tricks and broke the tatty jabber. High come a do, a high come day, high come a diddle, come a dandy oh. house in order diddly doon. Oh, if I did the like again, he'd pit me fae the tune. Come a high, come a do, a high, come dear, high, come a diddle, come a dandy. Oh, we hae a gallant Bailey, I Wallace is his name. He can fade it up the cave, and he takes doon a came. Come a high, come a do, a high, come dear, high, come a diddle, come a dandy. Oh, we hae a little Bailey, I Jamison's his name. He's skin arty offered bodies raised and half a flame. Come a high, come a do, a high, come dear, high, come a diddle, come a dandy. Oh, he's skinned doon to Charlie Watts 40 a drop. Long, long ere I could doon, the laddie couldna stand. Come a high, come a do, a high, come dear, high, come a diddle, come a dandy. Oh, we hae a gallant kitschy deem, I Simpson is her name. For to tell her pedigree, I really would think shame. Come a high, come a do, a high, come dear, high, come a diddle, come a dandy. Oh, she dresses up on Sunday, we had heat above the level. Her teeth are oh, the ivy that would scare a very devil. Come a high, come a do, a high, come dear, high, come a diddle, come a dandy. Oh, now my song is ended, I won't sing any more. If any be offended, you can walk outside the door. Come a high, come a do, a high, come dear, high, come a diddle, come a dandy. Oh, come a high, come a do, a high, come dear, high, come a diddle, come a dandy. Oh.
Guys my guest, Iona Fyfe. Iona, welcome, and thanks for joining us. And you grew up in Huntly, and it's way up there in the northeast of Scotland in Aberdeenshire, but you're in Glasgow, aren't you?
Yeah, I was born in Huntly. I grew up there. It's a very small town. It's very insular. And when I was 17, I moved to Glasgow to study traditional music at the conservatoire here. And I never left. And I feel like Glasgow's my home.
So being at university, coming down to Glasgow, how has that time been for you? Because I can imagine that it has fundamentally changed or challenged the way in which you hear the music, sing the music. It's a formal setup at university versus, hearing it as a 4-year-old and everywhere you go in your family.
Absolutely. And when I learnt folk songs, it was in a sing-around. It was in a really natural setting, a ballad competition, in the home. And being able to go down to university and be sat down and taught a song from a teacher was such a synthetic, weird experience. Now, in the past, I did study classical singing as well. I got a scholarship to a music school in Aberdeen called North East of Scotland Music School. So I knew what a vocal lesson was. I knew technique and all that. But to be sat down and tell this is tradition when you've already kind of experienced it in the field was really difficult. And I definitely didn't fit in because I was that bairn that was like always asking questions, always pushing lectures, being like, oh no, well, this is how I ken it. I learnt it for this person.
Did they all think of you as a bit of a stroppy student? Rebellious and sort of resistant to changing? Well,
when I first moved to Glasgow, I was overwhelmed with how vibrant the scene was. Amazing, some of the best bands, in Scotland, you just see like playing in a session at the pub. It was amazing. But I also didn't fit in because I was so conditioned by this grounding in tradition to sing unaccompanied and to only sing unaccompanied. So the idea that in class, we had to collaborate with other musicians, we had to use accompaniment. I mean, I play piano as well. That's how I play myself. But I've came out the other end being able to go, right, let's create an album with electric guitars. Let's make it sound more contemporary. But before then, I was confined to this box and habit in this box of tradition that I was terrified to do anything. I was terrified to put a piano to it. One person on Facebook used to say, that's a gimmick, playing piano with your singing. No, it should be unaccompanied. But nowadays, after going to conservatoire and seeing how innovative but inspiring, yet rooted in tradition, my contemporaries were, it really pushed me forward to work with them and to make music with them. Yeah, I'd say that formal education in folk music, a lot of the revivalist folk singers in Scotland and you know, I'm sure in England as well, because Newcastle's got a folk course. The revivalist singers certainly look down upon it and think that it's too contemporary. And, you know, one person called it the abattoir where folk music goes to die. And I don't think that's the case. I think that having young musicians who are grounded in tradition, or perhaps not grounded in tradition, be able to go and access it is really important. But I did musical theatre when I was there as well. I got, you know, technical training from a musical theatre coach because, of course, folk music is definitely grounded in that cigarette and coffee and then go on stage and sing. And that does not work when you're a young singer singing, you know, high stuff and going on tour for 3 weeks at a time. You can't be like that. So you have to go and maybe train and get some good technique in you. And that was amazing. But if you asked any of my contemporaries 5 years ago, my peers 5 years ago, do you think Iona will ever, you know, play with an electric guitar or an electric bass? They would say,
Horrified.
Yeah.
Well, let's hear another one of your songs now. It's called Poor Ditching Boy. Tell me a little bit about this song.
So Richard Thompson wrote it in response to reading the Lewis Grassic Gibbon novel Sunset Song. Very, very well-known novel. It's been turned into a film a few times. Agnes Dane was in it, and I got a hud of it. And I actually translated his version into Scots. So the one that I'm doing is in Scots, but he originally wrote it in English. And I just love how you know, you can make new songs, all songs new again, and new songs all again.
Is the river o' winter sae cauld and sae sad? The river are weary to flood. The storm and a wind cut through to my skin, but she cut through to my blood. I was looking for trouble to tangle my line, but trouble come looking for me. I kent I was standing on treacherous ground. I was sinking our face to and free. We were scheming, idlewise. She left me peer enough. The storm and a wind cut right to my skin, but she cut right to my blood. I would not be asking, I would not be seen, or begging on mountain or hill. I'm ready and blind with my hands tied to him. I've neither a mind nor a will. We were scheming, idlewise. She left me peer enough. The storm and a wind cut right to my skin, but she cut right to my blood. Bitter the need of the peer ditching boy. You'll always believe what they say. They tell him it's hard to be honest and true. Does he mind if he does not get paid? We were scheming, idlewise. She left me peer enough. The storm and a wind cut right to my skin, but she cut right to my blood. We were scheming, idlewise. She left me peer enough. The storm and a wind cut right to my skin, but she cut right to my blood.
Well, that was a Poor Ditchin Boy, a song that Iona has translated into the Scots language, which I have to say, Iona, I mean, listening to you talking, it's obviously something that you are incredibly passionate about. But just give us a little context of Doric and the Scots language and why it is so important to you.
So, Doric is a dialect of Scots. Now, in Scotland, we've got three national languages. We've got English, we've got Gaelic, and we've got Scots. Now, Scots is recognised under the European Charter of Minority Languages. In 2011, it was found in the census that our 1.5 million people speak Scots. Scots is the language of Rabbie Burns, but unfortunately it doesn't benefit from the funding, protection and promotion that our other national languages get. So what I do in my spare time when I'm not being a musician on tour is I've been campaigning for a Scots Language Act through the government. I actually managed to get Spotify to recognise Scots as a language and to host Scots as a language on its platform. Before, all of my songs were recognised as English on the platform.
So why is that important, Iona? What does it open up, having Spotify officially recognise the Scots language?
Well, one global platform gained legitimacy to a language that hundreds of folk have released songs in. There's hundreds of songs on, thousands of songs on Spotify, from the revival to now that are in Scots and all the different dialects of Scots. Gaining legitimacy is extremely important. And when young bairns turn on a TV or turn on the radio and hear folk that sound like them, they have this enriched sense of cultural identity and this proudness in their identity and this idea that speaking Scots doesn't mean that you're working class, you're lower class, you're uneducated. And so many folk going through that. And it's really, really sad because, when I was growing up, Scots and Doric is the language of the farmers and the fisher folk. But nowadays, it's also the language of our country's politicians, of our country's lawyers as well. Scots has got a lot of similarities with Norwegian and other West Germanic languages, like Frisian, Dutch, Scandinavian as well. Things like small, sma, bra, bra, kvind, quine, barn, bairn, lots of similarities. Scots, just like Scottish people in our nation, is a very internationalist language. I love it. And it is different for Gaelic. So Gaelic is a Celtic language, Scots is a West Germanic language, and it is a sister language to English. And that's why there is mutual intelligibility in there. You can what I'm saying with the context that I'm saying it in. And that means that it is mainstream. Hearing children be able to access entertainment in their own language is really important, because when I was growing up there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing, and it meant that when I moved to Glasgow and then maybe I'd go down to London for meetings or whatever, I self-censored myself. I didn't speak the way that I'd speak with my mother and father or in school. I'd be really uncomfortable just being who I was, and worried that folk would think that I was being rude or speaking slang or uneducated. Language should not be an indicator of class, unfortunately, but in Scotland we're still struggling with that. If you're Gaelic, you're bilingual, but if you speak Scots, well, you're speaking slang. But that's completely not the case. Scots isna all fushty ballads, and it's no stuff that's back in the past. It's no just your Walter Scott and Rabbie Burns. It's stuff that people are creating art in new. Folk are writing new songs.
It's a living, breathing expression of a whole different community. We've got a final song from you, which in fact is one of your own compositions. It's called The Called.
Yeah, The Called. So, and I guess in Lowland Scotland it would be pronounced The Called, but in the northeast it would be The Cal. So it's very confusing, isn't it? Because all these different dialects, they pronounce things differently. But it is a song that I wrote. I had a kind of commission from the Scots Language Centre to basically recontextualise Scots language and genre. So if you hear Scots and Gaelic being sung, it's usually a folk song. But if you hear Welsh language being sung, it could be any genre. It could be indie, pop, funk, folk, could be anything. Why can't we do that with Scots? Yeah. So what I did was I wrote this, The Called, in Scots, and it's a pop setup with a pop song structure. but in the Scots language. And it just shows that a language should not be confined to the country's traditional music. It should be outside that box as well. And I do hope that other young Scots speakers will be able to use that, because there's loads of poets that are using Scots and writing new poems.
And what's the song about, Iona?
It's about industry, effectively. It's about the fact that, sometimes being in the music industry is a little bit like a relationship, and it can take you in and chew you out and spit you out and leave you in the cold outside. So that's what it's about. It's not about a relationship, but if you hear it, it's kind of on two different levels.
So let's hear it. This is The Cold from Iona Fyfe.
This land we walk on is growing old. This land we walk on, the truth it's told. And did it come to be like this? And did we let it gang amiss? Take me back to the summertime when you held me in your arms. Never thought you'd do me here. We had such a lot to learn. Take me back when we felt so free, when you thought I was your best. Now I'm sitting with the rest, for you left me in the cold outside. This road we got down, it's getting sere. And oh, I'm stooning, I come back for more. And when all it's on to far I've been, and when all it's on to fit I've seen. Take me back to the summertime when you held me in your arms. Never thought you'd do me here. We had such a lot to learn. Take me back when we felt so free, when you thought I was your best. Now I'm sitting with the rest, for you left me in the cold outside. And I told you to leave it be. Oh, and I told you you couldn't see the whole thing. And I told you I'm bleeding June. And I thought I'd take my leave soon, but you take me back to the summertime, and you held me in your arms. Never thought I'd do him. We had such a lot to learn, but you take me back when we felt so free, when you thought I was your best. Now I'm speeding at the rest, for you left them in the cold. Take me back to the summertime when you held me in your arms. Never thought I'd do him. I had such a lot to learn, but you take me back when we felt so free, when you thought I was your best. Now I'm speeding at the rest, where you left them in the cold outside.
Michael Biggins, Graham Rorie and Ali MacKenzie accompanying the lovely Iona Fyfe, my guest on Music Planet, ending that session with an original composition called The Cold. This is Music Planet. I'm Lopa Kothari.